The secret Cold War submarine that Canada forgot. The North Atlantic is not merely a body of water. To the men who sail it, and especially to those who dare to travel beneath it, it is a living, breathing entity. It is a graveyard of ambition, vast and indifferent. Beneath the gray rolling waves off the coast of Nova Scotia, the pressure is crushing, the darkness is absolute, and the silence is deafening. But in the winter of 1965, that silence was broken by a sound that wasn't supposed to exist. A single, metallic groan, followed by a sudden, violent implosion that registered on seismographs as far away as Bermuda. Then the silence returned, heavier than before. For decades, the official history books have told us a sanitized version of the truth. We are told that Canada's naval losses during the Cold War were minimal, restricted to unfortunate accidents and routine training mishaps. We are told that the great game of underwater cat and mouse was played exclusively by the superpowers, the Americans with their endless budget and the Soviets with their reckless ambition, while nations like Canada watched politely from the sidelines, patrolling their coasts with obsolete equipment. But there is a different story, one whispered in the mess halls of retired sailors, debated in the back rooms of Legion halls, and hidden in the redacted black ink of declassified intelligence reports. It is the story of a phantom, a vessel that officially never existed, crewed by men who were systematically erased from the service roster, on a mission that remains classified to this day. This is not just a story about a boat that sank. It is a story about a nation that buried its own heroes to keep a secret. This is the story of Canada's lost submarine and the cover-up that has kept it buried at the bottom of the sea for over half a century. The geopolitical chessboard. To understand why a country like Canada, known for its peacekeeping and diplomacy, would hide a submarine disaster of this magnitude, you have to transport yourself back to the paranoia that gripped the world in the mid-1960s. The Cuban Missile Crisis was fresh in everyone's memory. The world had stared into the abyss of nuclear annihilation and blinked, but the eyes of the superpowers remained wide open. The Atlantic Ocean had become the most dangerous battlefield on Earth, a vast, three-dimensional chessboard where Soviet nuclear submarines lurked, waiting for the order to turn cities like New York, Washington, and Halifax into radioactive ash. In this high-stakes environment, Canada was not just a spectator, it was the goalkeeper. The geography of the Cold War placed Canada directly between the Soviet Union and the United States. If the bombers came, they would fly over the Canadian Arctic. If the submarines came, they would pass through the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap and skirt the Canadian coast to reach their firing positions. Ottawa was under immense pressure from Washington to secure its own waters. The Americans were spreading their resources thin, fighting a growing war in Vietnam and patrolling the globe. They needed Canada to step up. They needed a guardian in the north. However, the Royal Canadian Navy in 1965 was at a crossroads. Publicly, the fleet was aging, the destroyers were from a bygone era, and the acquisition of the Oberon-class submarines was still in its early public phase. But privately, rumors suggest a different reality, a clandestine project born out of desperation. Intelligence reports from the era indicate that the Soviet Navy was developing faster, quieter submarines that could slip past the standard SOS-US listening lines. Canada needed a stopgap. They needed something that could sit on the continental shelf, completely silent, acting as a tripwire. This is where Project Theta enters the narrative. deep in the uncatalogued archives of naval procurement, there are vague references to an initiative that seems to have no paper trail leading to a delivered product. The budget allocations exist, millions of dollars diverted into miscellaneous maritime research. The recruitment drives for specialized underwater warfare training exist, but the ships themselves, they are ghosts. The prevailing theory among naval historians who dare to touch this subject is that Canada attempted to field a small experimental class of hunter-killer submarines designed specifically for the unique thermal layers of the North Atlantic, the Phantom class. These weren't nuclear-powered behemoths like the American Nautilus. They were likely diesel-electric hybrids utilizing experimental battery technology or early air-independent propulsion concepts shared by British engineers. They were smaller, darker, and designed to do one thing: hunt. The Witness in the Tower. We travel now to a nursing home just outside of St. John's, Newfoundland. Here lives a man named Elias Vance. Elias is 92 years old, frail, and his eyesight is failing, but his memory of November 1965 is razor sharp. Elias wasn't a sailor, he was a listener. He worked at a covert listening post disguised as a meteorological station on the jagged coast of Newfoundland. His job was to listen to the static of the Atlantic, filtering out the noise of whales and fishing trawlers to find the rhythmic heartbeat of Soviet engines. "We called it the ghost frequency," Elias whispers, his hands trembling slightly as he recounts the nights he spent with headphones pressed to his ears. Most traffic was standard. You knew the American signature. It was confident, heavy. You knew the Soviet signature. It was rougher, mechanical. But starting in October of '65, we started hearing something else. It was a whisper, a flutter. It didn't sound like a machine. It sounded like a heartbeat. Elias claims that on several occasions he intercepted encrypted bursts on a frequency that wasn't listed in the NATO codebooks. It wasn't Russian. The encryption style was British, but the call signs were nonsense. Shadow 1, Dark Star. We were told to ignore them. My commanding officer came in one night, ripped the log page right out of my notebook and burned it in the ashtray. He looked me in the eye and said, "You didn't hear that, Vance. That's our boys, and they aren't supposed to be there." This testimony is crucial. It confirms that there was an active, non-standard Canadian asset operating in the deep waters off the Grand Banks weeks before the alleged disappearance. It wasn't the training exercise. You don't use non-NATO encryption for training. You use it when you don't want your allies or your enemies to know what you are doing. Inside the iron coffin, we have managed to recover fragments of what appears to be a personal journal belonging to a petty officer we will call James. His identity has been scrubbed from public service records, and his family was moved across the country shortly after the incident. But the detailed knowledge of naval procedure in the diary lends it a chilling authenticity. It paints a picture of a crew pushed to the breaking point. Entry dated October 14th, 1965. They moved us to the secure dock at midnight. No lights. The hull looks different than the Oberon's, sleeker, darker. The sonar coating feels rubbery, absorbs the flashlight beam. The skipper says she's a prototype, says she can dive deeper than anything the Ivans have. We're not allowed to tell our wives where we're going. I told Mary I'm on a training exercise in the St. Lawrence. I hate lying to her, but the mood on board is intense. We aren't training, we're hunting. There are men here I've never seen before. civilians in jumpsuits who don't salute and don't speak. They spend all their time in the engine room. The presence of civilians suggests that the Phantom was testing new technology. Were they engineers monitoring an experimental drive system? Or were they intelligence officers managing sensitive surveillance equipment? The vessel put to sea in late October. The Atlantic in autumn is a cruel mistress. The waves can reach 40 feet, tossing surface ships like toys. But for a submarine, the surface is just a memory. Down below, the world is stable, but the psychological pressure is immense. Entry dated October 14, 1965. The acoustics in this tin can are strange. We're running on battery, creeping at 4 knots. The sonar tech, Smitty, swears he's hearing ghosts. Ticks and pops that don't sound like biologicals and don't sound like engines. The skipper is tense. He spends hours in the comms room decoding messages that come in on the very low frequency band. We've been ordered to investigate a thermal anomaly in Sector 4. That's deep water, deeper than I'm comfortable with. The air is already getting stale. The scrubbers are working, but there's a smell like ozone and fear. Sector 4 likely refers to the area near the Laurentian Trench, a deep underwater trench that cuts into the continental shelf. It provides a perfect acoustic shadow for a submarine trying to sneak past radar. If a Soviet sub was trying to test Canada's defenses, or insert Spetsnaz agents, or tap underwater cables, that's exactly where they would be. The Fisherman's Tale. While Elias Vance was listening from the shore, and Petty Officer James was sweating in the dark beneath the waves, there were others watching from above. In the fishing communities of Nova Scotia, the ocean is the source of life, but it is also a source of strange stories. We found an archival interview recorded in 1998 with a fisherman named Silas McNeil, who has since passed away. In the grainy video, Silas sits on his porch, looking out at the foggy harbor. He speaks with a thick accent, but his story is consistent with the timeline of the disappearance. "It was the night of the big gale," Silas says, squinting at the camera. "November 17th. We were running back to port, trying to beat the weather. We were miles out, near the edge of the shelf. The water was black as pitch. Suddenly, the sea just boiled. About a half-mile off our starboard bow, something breached. It wasn't a whale, it was metal. It came up fast, like it was in trouble. No lights, just a black shape against the white foam." Silas pauses, taking a drag from a cigarette. "Then I saw the other one, a second shape behind it, smaller but faster. I saw a flash, not lightning. It came from the water, green light. Then the first shape, it didn't sink, it just dropped, like a stone. We tried to radio the Coast Guard, but the radio was dead, static, just screaming static for an hour. By the time we got the signal back, there was nothing there, just empty water." Silas's account introduces a terrifying possibility, a surface engagement, or perhaps a frantic emergency surfacing attempt that failed. The green light he describes is puzzling. Could it be a flare or something more exotic? Some conspiracy theorists point to experimental weapon tests, but a more grounded explanation might be the strobe of a distress buoy that malfunctioned or was immediately extinguished by the waves. The night of the implosion. Combining the diary, the radio intercepts, and the eyewitness account, we can attempt to reconstruct the final hours of the Phantom. On the night of November 17, 1965, the Phantom was likely tracking a target. Petty Officer James's final entries become erratic, the handwriting shaky, suggesting fatigue or the vibration of the vessel pushing its limits. Entry dated November 17, 1965, 2100 hours. We've been shadowed for 6 hours. Smitty says it's a Soviet November-class nuke, fast and loud. They know we're here. They're pinging us, active sonar, hammering the hull like a bell. It sounds like a hammer striking an anvil, over and over. It's maddening. The psychological warfare is working. The civilians in the engine room are arguing with the skipper. They want to dump the ballast and run. The skipper says we hold. We are the line in the sand. The November class was the Soviet Union's first nuclear-powered attack submarine. It was noisy, but it was fast and could stay submerged indefinitely. A diesel-electric Canadian sub would be at a severe disadvantage in a prolonged chase. They would eventually run out of battery power and have to snorkel to recharge, revealing their position. Entry dated November 17, 1965, 0230 hours, the final entry. The skipper ordered us to dive. We're passing 600 feet. The hull is groaning. I can hear the rivets popping. We're not built for this depth, not for this long. The Soviet sub is circling above us, pushing us down. They're herding us like sheep. Why aren't we firing? Why aren't we surfacing? The orders are to hold position. God help us. We are bait. We are bait. Those 3 words change the entire narrative. They suggest that the Phantom wasn't the hunter, it was the lure. Was this vessel sent out to draw a Soviet sub into a trap for American forces to engage? Was the crew expendable in a larger game of intelligence gathering? At 0300 hours local time, the seismographs registered the event, a hydroacoustic event consistent with the implosion of a pressure hull. When a submarine implodes, it happens faster than the human brain can process pain. The hull collapses inward at supersonic speeds. The air inside is instantly compressed, igniting like a diesel piston. For the men on board, the end was instantaneous. They were gone before the water even touched them.
The widow's silence. The tragedy of the Phantom didn't end with the implosion. It continued on land, in the living rooms of the families left behind. This is the most brutal part of the cover-up, the gaslighting of the grieving. We spoke to Margaret, the daughter of a man she believes was the chief engineer on the Phantom. She was only 10 years old in 1965, but she remembers the day the men in the gray suits came to their house in Halifax. It wasn't like the movies, Margaret says, sitting in a living room filled with photos of her grandchildren, but none of her father. There was no flag-folding ceremony, no telegram. 2 men in plain clothes came to the door. They sat my mother down and told her that my father had died in a training accident involving a boiler explosion at a secret facility in the UK. They said his body couldn't be repatriated. They told her, for the sake of national security, she couldn't speak about it, not to the neighbors, not to the press. If she did, she would lose her pension, she would lose the house. My mother was a terrifyingly strong woman, but that day she shrank. She became a ghost in her own life. We never had a funeral, we just stopped saying his name. Margaret pulls a faded envelope from a box. The checks came from a numbered account for years. Then, in the 1990s, they just stopped. When I tried to find his service records, the archives told me he had been discharged in 1964. They erased him. They erased all of them.
How do you mourn someone who officially never existed? This systemic erasure points to a cover-up that goes all the way to the Prime Minister's office. If the Phantom had simply sunk due to an accident, it would be a tragedy, but one that could be managed. The level of secrecy, the fake discharge papers, the hush money, the intimidation, suggests something far darker. It suggests culpability.
The theories of the deep. So what really happened? Based on the fragments of evidence we have assembled, 3 theories emerge. Theory number 1, the engineering failure. The Phantom was a prototype rushed into service to meet American demands. The Phantom class likely utilized experimental hull alloys to achieve greater depths or stealth. But metallurgy in the 1960s was still trial and error. Perhaps the pressure of the North Atlantic found a microscopic flaw in a weld. As the sub dove to escape the Soviet pursuer, the hull failed. The cover-up was enacted to prevent a political scandal about the government sending men to die in a faulty, experimental machine built by politically connected defense contractors. Theory number 2, the Soviet act of war. As Petty Officer James's diary suggests, they were being hunted. The Cold War was often hot underwater. Perhaps the Soviet sub, feeling threatened by this new silent Canadian vessel, fired a torpedo, or perhaps they engaged in aggressive maneuvering, shouldering, and rammed the smaller Canadian boat, rupturing its hull. In 1965, an act of war like that could have triggered World War III. If the Canadian government knew the Soviets sank their sub, they might have chosen to swallow the loss rather than retaliate and risk a nuclear exchange. The crew were the first casualties of a war that never officially started. They were sacrificed to keep the peace. Theory number 3, friendly fire. This is the most unsettling possibility. The waters off Nova Scotia were crowded. American submarines were also patrolling, aggressive and trigger-happy. In the confusion of a storm, with a secret Canadian prototype that didn't appear on standard NATO acoustic libraries, could an American hunter-killer have mistaken the Phantom for a Soviet intruder? The acoustic signature of the experimental engine might have sounded foreign to the American sonar operators. If an American torpedo sank a Canadian sub, the geopolitical fallout would have been catastrophic. It would have shattered the NATO alliance. The guilt of such an incident would necessitate the highest level of cover-up between Ottawa and Washington. It would explain the absolute silence and the lack of a search. You don't search for a body when you know exactly who buried it.
The Anomaly. For 50 years, the ocean floor kept its secret. But technology is catching up. The ocean is no longer a dark abyss. It is being mapped, scanned, and probed. In 2018, an independent oceanographic survey team was scanning the seabed off the Grand Banks for oil and gas deposits. Their side-scan sonar picked up an anomaly in the deep sediment near the Laurentian Channel. It wasn't a rock formation. It was a linear, cylindrical shape, approximately 200 feet long, half buried in the silt. We interviewed the lead surveyor of that expedition, Dr. Eris Thorne. "We saw it," Thorne says, his eyes lighting up. "It was unmistakable, a pressure hull. It was crushed amidships, but the bow and stern were intact. We prepared an ROV to go down and investigate. We wanted to read the markings. But within hours of reporting the anomaly to the maritime authorities as per protocol, we received a cease and desist order. We were told we were encroaching on a classified underwater communications cable zone. We were ordered to leave the area immediately. A Canadian Navy frigate arrived 12 hours later to escort us away." Why? If it is just an old wreck, why the urgency? Why the secrecy 50 years later? The answer might lie in what was on board. Rumors have persisted that the Phantom wasn't just a hunter-killer. Some believe it was carrying something. Recovered tactical nuclear depth charges? A defecting Soviet officer they had picked up at sea? Or perhaps the reactor or engine technology itself is still considered too sensitive to be seen by foreign eyes. The tomb of the unknown. Today, if you stand on the cliffs of Cape Breton and look out over the gray Atlantic, it looks peaceful. The waves crash against the rocks just as they did 1,000 years ago. Tourists watch for whales, unaware of the history beneath the keel of their tour boats. But somewhere out there, deep in the crushing dark, rests a steel tomb. Inside are the remains of 50 or 60 men, sons, fathers, husbands, who served a country that ostensibly forgot them. They are the crew of the Phantom. They are waiting to be found. They are waiting for their story to be told. The question isn't whether the submarine exists. The evidence, the diary, the radio intercepts, the fisherman's testimony, the sonar anomaly is overwhelming. The question is, why are they still afraid to let us find it? What is inside that hull that is so dangerous, so damning that it must remain at the bottom of the sea forever? Perhaps it's not just a submarine. Perhaps it's the proof that the Cold War wasn't cold at all, and that the price of our safety was paid in blood that has never been acknowledged. Until the day deep-sea submersibles finally shine a light on that rusted hull and read the nameplate, we are left with only the whispers. The sonar pings in the night, the diary of a man who knew he was bait, and the haunting reality that sometimes things just don't get lost, they are hidden. And as long as we stop asking questions, they will stay hidden. But the ocean remembers, and eventually, the ocean gives up its dead. The only question remains, will we be ready to hear what they have to say?